YouTube, how's it going? The Godows is back with my best locks and bets of Week 18, the final week of the regular season. We'll be back with this video during the playoffs as well, and a bunch of playoff content and off-season content on the way. Really excited about that. Hopefully you can join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on, follow us on Twitter, check out our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop, code GOAT. Spread picks, a little tricky because it's the last week, a lot of pressure on teams fighting to get in the playoffs, and teams sitting guys on snap count, so a little tricky. I do like the Bucks minus 4.5. That line is pretty low. Vegas is probably thinking it could be a trap for Tampa. They could choke. I know there's a lot of pressure, and some teams, sometimes, we see it almost every year. Teams kind of fold under the pressure, but Panthers coming off that brutal loss against the Jags, against CJ Beathard. Bucks, they were off last week. I think they knew it was ahead. Like, they're gonna beat the Panthers in their minds, and they're gonna win the division, and they're getting ready for the playoffs. I think they'll make sure they win this division, this game. But before last week, they were playing really good football. So I think a little bit more like that. They should cover the 4.5. I think worst case, 6-point win. I suppose they could choke. And lose the division here, but I just don't really see it. I like the Bears getting 3 points. That game's going to be really, really tight. I think the Bears have a decent shot to win that game. Bills minus 3, it's probably going to be close. That's why it's a little tricky. It's probably going to be close to that because a game like that, the NFL is going to make sure it's kept close. But I think the Bills win. I think they win by just over 3. They're playing good football right now. The Dolphins struggle against the better teams, and they're very injured at the wrong time. So, like, they got beat up during that game last week. It went poorly, and now they're gonna go into a week with missing Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard, these guys. So I like the Bills to take care of business and get that much deserving spot of a playoff spot, I should say, and then they would win the division there. So I think both the Dolphins and the Bills are deserving of that. On to alternate spreads. The Bengals should take care of business against the Browns. They're at home. They're going to play their starters. The Browns are locked into that 5 seed no matter what. They're going to play Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. I'd imagine a bunch of other starters sit as well. So the Bengals at home should be able to handle Jeff Driscoll. Again, the alternate spreads are for, like, if you're putting together a parlay. Obviously, you're not going to bet these by itself. You're going to win, like, cents. But the Lions plus 3, I think they're going to try. I think they want that momentum going into the playoffs. That's just kind of the Dan Campbell way, the Lions way. So I think they're going to try. The Vikings looked very bad last week. They're probably in off-season mode, even though they have like a 2.7% chance of making the playoffs. The worst case, the Lions lose by 1 or 2. So I think they're going to win that game. So then the Bucks minus 1, they should handle business. The Bears, you can bump that up to plus 7. I think it's going to be a tight game. And the Bills plus 3. So if they do lose, it's going to be within 3 there. So those are some alternate picks for you guys if you're putting together a parlay. Straight up, I'm going to go with the Bengals. I think the obvious pick would be the Cowboys, and I'm confident with the Cowboys. I listed them here. They're playing one of the worst teams in football, the Commanders, but the Cowboys are 3-5 away. They are a much different team, home versus away. So could we really sit here when they have a lot on the line and they're playing away and say they're an absolute number 1 lock? It's hard for me to say that. I think the Bengals playing their starters with the Browns playing their backups, Jeff Driscoll at quarterback, I think the Bengals should be able to handle business no problem. That line is starting to go up too. It originally was minus 6, what Vegas kind of had in mind that the Browns will probably play backups. And it's coming out more and more that they will, and Jeff Driscoll starting that line starting to go up. So the Bengals should win that game. We'll put the Cowboys, we'll put the Bucks. The Bucks should win, but could be a trap. And the Jags against the Titans, they should win to lock up the AFC South, but I guess that one could be a little scary, I suppose. But these teams should take care of business here this week in Week 18. For upset, I only got one this week. I like the Bears, plus 136 against the Packers. A lot of people are very confident with the Packers. I think people got last week, the Vikings-Packers game, playing too much of a part in their minds. Just before the 3 weeks before that, the Packers defense was playing the worst defense in football, the very worst defense in football. Vikings experimented with the rookie quarterback. I just don't think you can expect the same thing with the defenses last week. And the Bears' offense is playing better. Of course, the Bears' offense can shoot themselves in the feet, and maybe not close out games sometimes, but they should be able to have some success against the Packers defense. And the Bears defense is playing as good as any defense in football. So I think they can, not stop, but possibly limit the Packers offense enough, and the Bears offense. The difference in defense is what gets me in that game. So I like the Bears to win that game. I know it's in Lambeau, tough atmosphere, tough crowd. The Bears played very well in that weather last week, so the weather isn't an issue for me at all, or for the Bears. So I like the Bears in this game. I'm surprised that they're underdogs by this much. I think, and I could be wrong, Packers could win, but I think people are kind of brainwashed by the most recent Packers game. But Bears are playing very good football. I know they're a lot better home than away, so I guess that's the thing with them, but not too far of a distance in Green Bay from Chicago, and it's Bear weather as well as Packer weather. So we've been pretty good on the upset locks this year. We've gotten 10 out of 15 right. In the 1 week I didn't have a lock, my top pick was actually right as well. So if I would have made that my lock, we'd be 11-5, but I didn't. So I'm going to go with the Bears this week. I think that's a pretty solid bet, just a single bet if you're going to pick the Bears. If you're confident with the Packers, don't do it. Don't change your mind just because I said it. If you're already picking the Packers, then stick with your gut there. But I think it's a pretty decent pick. Throw a couple bucks on it, just to be safe if you want, just for fun. Pretty good odds. Next, my best bets. I like the Bucks at the top, -4.5. It almost seems like a trap the way this line is so low, but I do like it. If you throw the Bengals money line in there, if you want to parlay it, if you want to bump that Bucks line down a little bit and do with the Bengals money line, something like that. Bears money line, I think that's a good single bet, but if you want to pair that with some safer bets, like some of the alternates we talked about, if you're insisting on doing a parlay, that makes sense as well. And then Buffalo money line is decent odds, even though they are favored. So some of those are just ones that stand out, like that's a good single bet, or here's a bet that you can throw in a parlay that has pretty good odds for a parlay. It's not like awful odds. So that's what I got. There's no Thursday night game, but I already identified some anytime touchdown options that I like. The last 2 weeks, when I tweet out my best bets, I list 3. I've been doing it for several weeks. I list 3 anytime touchdown, and you can do them single bets, or it's up to you. You can do them in a parlay. I know people like those three player anytime touchdowns. In the last 2 weeks, 100%. Got 3 in last week and the week before. So excited about that. So I do have to narrow this down to 3 maybe in the tweet, but these are guys that are really standing out because I think they'll score, and they're, some of them are not terrible odds. Some of them are great odds. Kenneth Walker, I think, has a day. It is a little tricky because will they use Charbonnet a little bit more? Walker's been dealing with a little bit of minor injury, so it's a little tricky. They're playing the Cardinals in a must-win game for the Seattle Seahawks. And what can you do on the Arizona Cardinals? What's their biggest weakness? It's run defense. You can run the ball. So I think Kenneth Walker has a day. I think he scores. Rashad White's had a really good year, better than expected. He scores touchdowns, whether it's on the ground or through the air. The Panthers, very solid defense, believe it or not, but in the red zone, they allow rushing touchdowns. I think Rashad White scores. Josh Allen's been on a tear scoring touchdowns. It's all or nothing game for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is the best player and weapon on the field. I think he runs in a touchdown. Zamir White's been running really well. Hasn't had a big, the numbers have come from yards, though, not a lot of touchdowns. But playing the Denver Broncos, who are kind of a weaker run defense, I think Zamir White can punch it in. DJ Moore's been looking really, really solid. These are more like pretty damn good. Like Walker, White, and Allen, they're going to be like minus odds, negative odds, but not by a whole lot, so they're pretty good. White, Moore, and Schultz are going to be pretty good odds, but yeah, I think White's, we talk about White. DJ Moore against the Packers. That defense has been atrocious. Ignore the Vikings game. It's been atrocious. It's bad. Especially with guys getting separation, but especially guys after the catch. DJ Moore has been feasting. He's great after the catch. I think he scores. Then Texans versus Colts. You think about, I think it's going to be more scoring. Well, I don't know if people realize. I think it's going to be a decent amount of scoring. So who's going to score for each team? That's what you got to figure out. I think in the passing game, I actually look at the running game for the Texans is a little tricky because you never know. Singletary's their main back, but as soon as they get in the red zone, sometimes it's Pierce. So don't bet on that. I think in the passing game for both teams, because you look at the Colts, they're pretty good at running the football. But the Texans are really good stopping the run. But I look at the Texans' pass offense against that Colts pass defense, and it's at Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz. I feel pretty decent about Dalton Schultz scoring a touchdown. So that's a pretty good odds one. If you want to go, and I have noticed that the odds aren't out yet for this one I'm about to say, but if you want to go with maybe like a big odds, like single bet, I think some of these, like Dalton Schultz could be a good single bet, but Zamir White, but a crazy one, I'd look at, I'm waiting for the odds to come out, but maybe Chase Brown on the Bengals, because I expect them to do some damage against the Browns backups, but the Bengals probably want to see some of the young guys a little bit more, and he's been looking good, looking explosive, whether it's running the ball or catching the ball in the backfield, and Mixon's usually good for a score, but maybe a little bit of the younger guys in the last game of the year with nothing really on the line. So I think that's a decent one. We'll see what the odds are. That's probably why there's no odds out. Maybe it's not going to be like the best odds. I mean, it's going to be positive. It's going to be plus odds. So we'll see. So some of those guys identified, I think the top three are probably more likely. Like, I fully expect Walker, Rashad White, and Josh Allen to score. So if you want to go a 3-player parlay there, and I think I expect these other guys to score too, and they're pretty good odds. So maybe those are like some 2-player parlays or just single bets. Schultz probably one standing out in that category. Funny, I was cooking up some bets on last Sunday night, Vikings-Packers, and I'm like, I feel like Johnny Munt, the Vikings backup tight end, is going to score. I don't know why, and it was plus 1,100 odds, and it actually almost scared me off, like how much that was. I'm like, that's way more than I expected, and he ends up scoring a touchdown. So I think we've been pretty good at identifying some of these, because last week it really wasn't the obvious ones, our three. Well, Kyron Williams kind of was, but we had Achane in there, so sometimes we just feel good about some of these guys. But that's my picks for this week. We'll be back for the playoffs if we do have picks. I'm sure we will. Then our weekly picks video, score predictions video, then some playoff content as well. Off-season content starting to come out. We have some on the channel, but more to come. We got to regrade that first round of that recent draft class. So excited about that. Something we're known for. We do every year. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on, follow us on Twitter. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.